Welcome to the Advisor's Edge. We're actually going to have a lot of fun today because eMoney, we bumped into Christian and we're chatting at Schwab Impact, and he's been gracious enough to join us. And Chuck, I think you know eMoney quite well.
Know it very well. We are actually big fans at Sovereign of eMoney. We're an eMoney shop for sure.
That's great. And one of the exciting things is, Christian, thank you for joining us. We're going to get to know you a little bit. Also, there's exciting 25 years eMoney. You're celebrating, or the org is celebrating 25 years, as I understand it.
Yeah, just wrapped up 25-year anniversary. So thanks for mentioning that. But yeah, it's been a great run.
It's cool. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of advisors know eMoney, and I hear a lot of good things from you guys. And we'll talk about what's going in there. But let's start, Christian, with getting to know you a little bit. What brought you to eMoney?
Well, I happy to, well, one, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to talk through that. I thought maybe give me a little bit of my background because I'm probably a different guest than you guys have had before. I didn't come from this industry. I'm actually new to this industry. So I had a very, very different path getting here. But starting off in technology, I started working for a company that sold vehicle tracking systems using GPS. And I want to walk through that, why that makes sense and why we're here today. That company, so it was an Internet of Things company, and they would put devices in vehicles. I primarily sold into public safety and public works. So one, that's how I learned to sell. Then I started leading a sales and marketing team in that regard. But it was my first exposure to software as a service. It got me then some exposure into Internet of Things, into wireless and telco, because we had to transmit the data from these vehicles back and forth wirelessly. But then selling to government, which is one of the most difficult things to do. And I quite frankly didn't enjoy it all that much, but I learned a ton. So bunch of just fundamentals in terms of how you sell. But by doing that, I got this exposure to software as a service. And then over the course of my career, I worked in a whole bunch of different industries, including fintech for payments processing, AI and machine learning companies. And then I started my own business. And I started working with tech firms, companies in growth mode in a variety of different industries as a fractional chief revenue officer. So I was doing that for 3 or 4 years. And I got contacted by eMoney. They didn't have a sales leader at the time, and our CEO reached out and said, "Hey, can you come in here and help us get through the year? Help me hire our next sales leader and make some recommendations on the business. What you see is working well, opportunities for improvement." So I started working with eMoney as a fractional about 1.5 years ago. And then after 5 or 6 months, she had asked me, "Would you consider coming on board here full time?" And I learned a lot about the industry in that time period, really liked the people, really liked the technology, and saw great prospects for growth. So I actually wound down my fractional practice and came on board full time as their head of sales in March of last year. So I'm approaching 1 year full time, but I've been working with the organization for 1.5 years. So I'm not an industry financial services person, but definitely worked in SaaS for over 20 years and fintech.
All right. That's interesting. I didn't see that coming, to be honest with you.
That's the thing. And that's why I say to you, like, you guys, you've forgotten more than I'll ever learn in this space, but I have been learning at a rapid clip. But really, the application of technology is not necessarily unique to the segment. A lot of the things that I'm seeing from firms, from end clients, these parallels are across many, many different industries. And with the advent of a lot of things that are coming into our space right now, from an AR perspective, integration perspective, M&A perspective, the loss of advisors from the available pool of financial professionals, like those are common in a lot of other industries as well. So I've been applying a lot of what I've learned over the last 4 years running my own business with a lot of different technology companies to eMoney, but there's a lot of parallels out there, even if I don't have the experience, Chuck, like you do, 20, 30 years, like working in the space and all the deep domain expertise you have, but learned a ton. Great people, just in the industry in general, and I've been having a great time.
Yeah, well, clearly after 1.5 years, you get a good taste of what it's all about, and you know the space well. You've got a great team with you there too. I'm curious. I'm going to ask you a funny question. What is the strangest thing we do in the financial services industry for your perspective, where you're like, man, that's odd. And you're like, you know what I mean? There's got to be something out there.
It's not strange, but the amount of people that enter the space and leave the space in a short turn has a lot of parallels to like realtors. So it's not weird. It's just that there's opportunities for training, for career progression that I don't see in a lot of other industries, just because of a lot of people come in and they burn out quickly. So I think there's opportunities there, but you don't see that in a lot of other spaces. The real estate one is very common, but not weird per se, but an opportunity, I think.
Yeah. You know, I would chime in on that for just a minute, if I may, because I think that's a really interesting point. And I'm not sure that it's burnout. It's just they never get any traction, right? And I think this could be a good segue into talking about what eMoney does, because I think eMoney is going to be really, or can be very helpful in this. And here's what I mean. You have a lot of people that come into the space looking to build a book of business, but there's really two skill sets, right? And Christian, you're in sales. I've been in sales my entire life. And I'd be curious if you have a different thought on this. Generally speaking, you have someone who's good at sales or good at operations. Rarely do you have someone that's good at both, for the most part, right? You have someone that's really detailed oriented, or someone that's a real, rainmaker type. So I think what happens is a lot of these advisors that come into the business, they want to build a book from scratch. That's hard to do for most people. Some people can, but the ones that can, to your point, they wash out. But I think there's a great opportunity for people that like the advice side of the business, the planning side of the business, actually utilizing tools like eMoney to come in as part of a team and be a service advisor, right? And I think that's something that's underlooked. I know the CFP board is working hard to help the next gen advisors know this, where you don't have to come in and go right to an eat what you kill kind of, structure where you're on sales. There's plenty of teams looking for talented next gen CFPs to essentially press the buttons on eMoney and do the planning work, and either stay there in that capacity and go into like a managerial capacity, or move on to run a book of business. Do you see that a bit? Because I know you guys have that eMoney externship, and that seems like it's a real good pathway for this. If you could talk to us about that a little bit, I think that'd be interesting for our audience to hear.
Yeah, as much as that's helpful, I think making software tools easy, intuitive to use, that can teach you as you go along, is going to be paramount to making this successful. As people inevitably retire from the industry, we face those shortfalls. So it's those types of apprenticeships and training programs. It's mentorship by the firms. It's getting folks exposure in a way where they don't feel threatened, like, hey, I've got to have this success in 6 months or I'm done. And I've seen a lot of the RIAs that I talk to have those programs, or are mentoring the next generation, whether it's a family member in the business or pulling folks in. Also just making it available to recent college graduates. Like, I don't think there's a lot of awareness out there that we need people in the industry to do this type of work. So I think it's a combination of those types of programs, the firms that can mentor younger folks that want to enter the market, or maybe it's even people that are doing a career change. I was doing something else, I want to have success in this domain, but also then supporting them with the tools to make it easy and help them along. Why is this happening? Why would I make this recommendation? What are the things that I can interact with my software that makes it less daunting? So I think all those things together can really help, bridge the gap as we, are going to face some shortfalls in financial professionals that operate here.
That's great, because what I hear you saying is that what eMoney's doing, and so I'm going to say real quick, our goal isn't to be an advertisement for eMoney, but it's very helpful to understand what you guys are doing and how you help. So we're going to dig into some of this stuff, because it's pretty cool. Because what I hear you saying there is eMoney is actually building that structure. So when they're a newer advisor, let's say it's their second career and they're getting up and going, it can help walk them through in a process that you guys know will help them be most successful. Am I reading too much between the lines there?
No, I mean, like this, it takes you, well, Chuck, you could say how long where you felt really comfortable where you could drop in any scenario and really understand all the interrelated issues, but that someone's facing when they come to you and they're looking for advice. But giving them tools that can coach them through these really complicated models, these ensemble formats that people are looking to provide an outcome to their end clients, that's just as critical as getting to the conclusion. You see these advent of these AI tools, and I could come up with this scenario for you, and I just press a button, it's there. And then your client goes, well, how'd you get there? That the getting there is more important than the result from a relationship perspective with your client. They want to build that trust with you. They want to understand, and it's important to provide solutions that not only help them get there, but explain why these things are happening along the way, and then playing off different options to maximize. Maybe it's that probability of success. Maybe it's that retirement year. When am I going to do these things based upon my client needs, and how do I explain it to them in a way that they understand not only why it's happening and why it's valuable?
All right. So as Chad knows, I kind of tend to jump into the weeds a bit. And if it's not premature, I would like to go ahead and do so, because I really like to use these podcasts as sort of a dual role for me, because we are exploring that release that you have. And I had a chance to do a little bit of a deep dive into it, sort of a shallow dive, but it seems like it's like the decision center, but rather than the advisor pressing a bunch of the buttons, it's more automated, and it seems like you're leveraging AI. So for example, the Social Security analysis I thought was fascinating to the extent Social Security analysis can be fascinating, I suppose, but I think the workflow seemed neat. Could you walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, Chuck, are you speaking about like the release we're putting out regarding CoPlanner?
CoPlanner, yeah. I wasn't sure what it was called. I didn't want to call it Copilot, because I know it's not that. It's
no, but it's completely intentional that it's called CoPlanner. Yeah, and it would to the untrained eye, that would look like it's AI, but it's actually not, and I'll tell you why. Okay. When you're using AI and you're talking to a bank or financial services firm or an insurance firm, not just the result that you've gotten to is important. It's how did you get to that result, and is it repeatable? If you use pure AI to do that and you're hitting the internet, that result, that query I run right now for you, let's say you're my client, Chuck, I could run it 1 second later, it's going to give me a different result. You can't audit that. You can't take that to a risk team. So what we build is a set of ensemble models, a decision tree, and a very advanced decision tree, if you will, that you could run a scenario against 1,000,000 times, and it will give you the exact same result. But it appears to the untrained eye that this is AI. It's actually not. But the reason we did that is for auditability, proof of work, and to show that path that goes through. But what we're hoping to accomplish, back to the point, Chad, that we were talking about in the beginning, is how do I provide a tool to an advisor not only to save time, but potentially to turbocharge them to get to better outcomes for their client, and then educate them as to why that happened. So can I save you time? Because a lot of the advisors will, in our software or others, they'll let me try this, let me go pull back, let me try this. And they're constantly tugging and pulling. But what if you could have all those levers all working in an ensemble format? That's the goal of CoPlanner. And then being able to provide without output, but a description as to why these different models work together, why this is being recommended, and then letting the advisor tug and pull. Hey, let me push out my retirement year a couple of years. You know what? Let me adjust my probability of success. Let me do it the opposite direction and have the ability to play those. And then taking that one step further, and this is the piece that will feel more AI-ish. Now I could chat with the model that I just built instead of twisting this dial and sliding that lever, just like in a chat format. And again, not really AI. I have a language model, but I'm talking back to that model that I created in a more natural way that people do. I don't want to do all these sliders and these sorts of things. I either want to talk to it or I'd want to type to it and then run some interactions and then line up 2 or 3 to let the client decide. These are the trade-offs. These are the things that we can do. We can do this Roth conversion. We can start Social Security here. We can do all these different things. But at the end of the day, can I get some additional insight from that tool that will cause less sacrificing? And that's
right.
that's the really cool thing that comes out of it. When you turbocharge this and you educate, you're like, you know what? I could accomplish this probability of success, but I could do it, and I could do it 2 years earlier because I'm using all these things, all these best practices from everyone out there in these great ensemble models. That's really what we're looking to do.
That's interesting. So to your point then, let's say we do the Social Security analysis and a Roth conversion analysis, and the system's going to spit out the optimized recommendation. Will it also give in an easy way, like bullet points to back up why we got there, I think is what you're saying, in a way that I can put into a PDF or something and then send it to the client as my follow-up?
That's actually that's a great question. It's a really important output piece. Yes. So that will then speak, and you'll get a report as to these recommendations were made this way. And of course, the advisor can tweak and modify, but getting that, because when we see the newer people entering the industry, a lot of the times it's sitting next to somebody like you for years and cycles over and over and over. And there's only so many of yous available in your organization to train and mentor them. So there's training elements, and there are descriptions that go into that write-up as to why those recommendations were made. So it's as much as a turbocharge for the advisor, but a training element built into the software. And we're hoping that will allow you to, one, save time. And I want to ask you guys a question on this. So I don't want to, actually, let me stop there. This comes up all the time with AI tools or any of these tools in general. Chuck, if you get more time back in your day, I don't know when the last time you personally wrote a plan or how long it took you when you did, but if you get that hour back.
Less than 20 hours ago, and it took me about 35 minutes.
Great. So
I'm an active planner, even though I run sovereign.
You're probably really good at it, right? But
really
some people, they might be like, hey, it takes me 2 or 3 hours to do this. I don't have that depth of experience. Or you're now using an AI note taker, and that saves some time. What do you do with the time you get back? Is it for deeper level relationships with your existing clients? Are you looking to acquire new? What are you doing with that time? Because I always see these, time savers. I'd love to get your perspective on what you do when you get that time back in your day. I'm assuming you're not playing more rounds of golf with it.
Yeah, and thankfully not, because that would be an ugly, ugly scene. No, so getting more of my time back is actually really top of mind for me, as Chad knows. But I'm in the process actually right now of selling a portion of Sovereign to our next gen leaders, with the whole idea that by the end of this year, all I want to do is talk to my clients, do my media work with Chad and also Investment News. I have the Go RIA podcast, as you know, and then giving the thought leadership for Sovereign. That's all I want to be doing by the end of this year. So part of what I need to do, though, is still service my clients. That's going to be one of the only 3 things I'll be doing, which for me is going to be like a part-time job if you know all the other stuff I've been doing running Sovereign. So whatever I can do to get my time back, that'd be super helpful. But what I'm actually more excited about as we're building out our team of in-house financial planners is to make it easier to train them on a consistent and repeatable methodology. And to the extent we could do that and leverage the co-player, I think that's what I'm probably most excited about, is to be able to essentially do things the way I would normally do them. And at some point I will no longer be doing them, right? Hopefully that's further down the road than not. But I want everything to be consistent. And to the extent we can leverage technology to do things faster, that's great, but also to do things more consistently and repeatable. That is, as if not in some ways, more important than saving 10 or 20 minutes, to me at least, the way I see it.
Yeah. Well, and another thing for both of you, I could give you my perspective after talking to hundreds and hundreds of users of our software over the last year. But what do you think? Let's start with the advisor. What does the advisor want out of technology that they're not getting today? And then I want to go into the client. What is the client not getting out of technology today?
I think they're the same. Looking at fewer different screens. And I was going to bring this up as a question. So for example, right now we look at eMoney. We also look at Holistiplan. And to be very frank, we're going to be incorporating estate planning. I really don't want a third screen.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning Wealth.com, Vanilla. And I think those guys have a great solution. But I don't want 3 screens now. I don't even want 2.
Yep.
And I was going to ask this and maybe suggest this. Maybe I'll just suggest it publicly here, just amongst us friends. But I want to come back to the tax thing, but let me talk about estate planning, because I think this is a great idea. And I love what Vanilla is doing. I love what wealth.com is doing. I truly do, but I don't want another screen. eMoney has some really good estate planning flowcharts, right? What I do want is the ability to easily get one of my clients' trust documents uploaded, reviewed by someone or something, AI, and then pushed to you guys. So that way that estate flowchart populates inside eMoney. Yep. And this is not to be, dismissive of wealth.com and Vanilla. I think they're great solutions. And I've said so much to the leaders of both of those organizations. Use that ability to analyze the trust documents, but just get an API with eMoney and push it there. Mm-hmm. You guys have to be thinking about this, yeah?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Those are great points. I hear this over and over. People want this AI operating system to eliminate that dual entry, that swivel chair. And so in the example of eMoney, we do have APIs for data in, data out. So when you are working with an AI note taker, you're working with Vanilla or wealth.com, they can pass data in and out. Now, graphics, great idea. Like that's another one that I think makes a lot of sense. And this is the type of feedback I'd love to hear from people in the industry. How do you take that to the next level? So when I populate data, wherever it may be, it becomes ubiquitous throughout my entire enterprise. I'm pushing to my data lake. I'm synchronizing with my CRM. I'm talking back and forth with that AI note taker. Maybe I'm pushing data into Vanilla. Maybe I'm pulling data out, or both, into the system. But that is very consistent that I hear. I don't want another one. I'd love to have single sign-on, all those elements, because you can get screen fatigue as you go through it. And that's what we spend a lot of time on with our integration partners on, is that exchange of data in and out to eliminate those redundancies, have the synchronization, and have the analytics available across the entire enterprise.
Yeah. And the clients want the same thing, right? They don't want to have their financial planning portal, their accounting portal, their estate portal. They want their portal. But as I say, eMoney, you guys already have the flowcharts. Are you guys talking with these estate specialists like the Wealth and the Vanilla?
All the time. So we have integrations with many of them, well, definitely those two guys, but we get requests all the time. So yes, keep bringing it. Like I think this is awesome. I always like unique ways to improve these, but all the time we're always doing enhancements to the API integrations that we have in the space. And now we're seeing so many more, as you guys know, the advent of AI, the ability to bring these betas, these prototypes to market. Two guys in a garage, you've got a couple weeks, you've got some really interesting things coming out. So we are seeing a proliferation of third parties coming to market with all really unique use cases, some just little widgets and others like really broad-based solutions. So, keep bringing it. We actually pay attention to everything that we get through user voice, and we're always looking to get smarter about what the market wants. But I did want to ask you about end clients, and what are you seeing in terms of differences for your boomers versus your Gen X versus your millennials, and now going into Gen Z? This is going to be your next generation of clients. How do they want to interact? What do they want?
Yeah, well, going back to my initial point, it's one portal, right? And I think that's going to be universal for anyone. But then, and I don't think this is a big surprise, we're not breaking any news here, but the younger the generation, the more they want to be technologically enabled, right? They want to do a lot from their computer. They want to do even more from their phone, right? So they want one app that has their entire financial life on there. And again, I know eMoney does a great job with that. I would like to see a little bit more with the estate planning stuff, and I'm glad to see that you guys are doing that. But I don't think it's much different from what the advisors want, which is fewer different screens, everything on one spot, and easy to use. What I would say is, in addition to the younger generations having a higher desire for tech-enabled interfaces, I think they also want a little bit more DIY than the older generation.
That's what I thought you were going to say, because the things that I've been reading is playing a more active role in their financial future than maybe some other generations have.
Yeah.
I want to set my own goals, and I want to communicate with you as my advisor. I've got this idea. I want to do this. I want to iterate. So good to hear. I'm very consistent with what I've been seeing in the studies that I've read.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be more and more important. And this could be an interesting segue too, to talk about how we see the potential for your enhanced portal as a prospecting tool, right? So Chad, did you want to take that?
No, I want you to go forward because
okay.
I love that you guys are digging in. So keep going. I'll jump in when I have something good.
I don't mean to monopolize, but these are all things like, I do want to.
That's why we're here.
So what I think is a really interesting use case for that portal is, you're doing your social media funnels, right? The lead generation funnels, and say, hey, give me your email and I'll turn you on to this portal. And we're not even going to call you. No one's going to come aggressively hounding you for an office appointment or a Zoom appointment, but you're going to log on, you're going to get this portal, and you're going to be able to onboard yourself, and you'll be able to do some fairly extensive what-if scenarios. What if I retire at 60 or 65? And what if I do this or do that? Because most consumers still, more than before, but still they really don't understand the difference between planning and money management, right? Mm-hmm. They need to understand the benefit of planning is being able to see into the future. What will it look like if I retire early or later, if I spend on this or don't? And if they can play around easily, and I think your portal is moving in that direction, that's good not only for existing clients. I think that could be a real game changer for client acquisition using social media, and also client acquisition by farming into your 401ks, right? That participant that might have a $2,000 balance in the 401k you happen to be managing might have $5 million somewhere else at Merrill Lynch, right? And if we get them into the portal, we can identify that person and then feed that person content relative or relevant for their status.
Yeah, I'm surprised more organizations don't do exactly what you say. I think historically the reasons why they didn't, you tell me, because you run the business, was they were worried about acquisition cost, ongoing support, and I think it was because the technology tools weren't there. If I start having this discussion with someone who's not my ideal client profile right now, there's a cost to that, right? Because then you're not working with your other clients. But if you give them tools that are more self-service, that hit them where they want to be, I want to interact with this, I want to link my accounts, I could see, all these different, where am I spending my money? Like all the things that you would do in a mobile application experience. And then they can start dropping in their own goals. Maybe they could message with you in a light format. I think it's a great way to establish a relationship at a relatively low cost that doesn't eat up a ton of resources. And when they're ready, and as they get older and they have more assets and their challenges in life become more complex, you are perfectly positioned to work with them. So I think you're on the right track. I'm just surprised that I know a lot of eMoney clients do this, but not that more of them don't, because it's a tremendous way to engage with people, primarily on this, of course, where they want to talk and where they want to communicate. And now it is a lot of self-service. I can upload my documents, I could load them up into a vault. I can link all my accounts. I could link my credit cards to see where my spend is going, and it gives them a nice little elements of personal financial management, though it's not necessarily a personal financial management app. It's got aggregation. I could do some goal planning, and then I have a one-on-one relationship with an advisor. I think it's a great idea, and I'm hoping more and more organizations will do that moving forward, because it's a great way to grow the business in a light touch format. And then you were talking about like your kids are clients. That's a great way. Why would you not offer that to them and get them some exposure to what financial services are all about at an earlier age?
Exactly right. And not only is it perhaps a lower cost on acquisition, but it's a far lower cost on retention of those clients that are not quite ready to be full-blown clients. But you also don't want them wandering off, right? You want to keep them in the family, in the ecosystem. And I think that enhanced portal is a good way to do that. We haven't fully rolled it out to the extent it could be. That's definitely a later in this year type of thing, but that's exactly how we intend to use it.
Very good. What outside of this, like when you dream up, like if you waved the magic wand and said, I would like to see this new thing, not existing products, not integrations. What do you think? What what would get you really excited out there as a new offer, or maybe an extension in a different way of what's from a technology perspective is available today?
I'll tell you with some great specificity. And I was supposed to give you or someone on your team a call on this.
Okay.
And I was like, when I saw that we're talking, I was like, screw it, I'll just wait for the podcast.
Okay.
There we go.
So I did promise another organization I was going to reach out to on this. So there's an interesting law firm called Hargrove. Are you familiar with those guys?
I don't know them. No.
Hargrove, Hargrove. And it's one of those things, like I knew something like them would exist, right? I didn't know them, but I was like, there's got to be someone that's doing this. And I put out some feelers. I'm, very connected with a lot of planners throughout the country. And I said, there's got to be a law firm that has estate planning lawyers in every single state, right? Because our firm, Sovereign, we have clients in almost every state. I don't think there's any that we're missing at this point. And we don't want to have 50 different relationships. We like things centralized. So I said, there's got to be a law firm that has the ability to service all of our clients, no matter what the state, but we still have one general point of contact, and they're also tech enabled. And I posed this to a bunch of advisors that I knew, and one was like, oh, you mean like Hargrove? I was like,
okay.
Never heard of them.
All right.
Let me reach out to them. So Hargrove is a firm that specializes in estate planning in all 50 states, and they work almost exclusively with RIAs. But what's interesting is they're also very tech enabled. So they have a sister company, which is essentially an estate planning platform, not like wealth.com or vanilla. It's designed to help the advisor work with their client to interact with a human being lawyer. So that's interesting. And I spoke with the founder CEO of Hargrove just a few weeks ago, and I mentioned you guys, and I said, I'm going to try to connect you guys. Going back to my thought before, where I don't want to look at another portal. I said, would it be interesting if I'm sending you clients and you're figuring out who is the grantor of the trust, what are the parameters of the trust, what type of trust it is, and then you push that via API over to eMoney that already has some pretty decent looking estate flowcharts. So now I'm looking at one portal. So that's what I would like. I think that'd be really good.
Great feedback. Love it. Yeah.
And to do the same thing. So the way we look at estate planning, we actually bifurcate it into estate organization and advanced estate planning, which is simply estate organization is something that everyone needs. Whether you have $1,000 or $20 million, you should have a basic will and trust and healthcare proxy and POAs. If you have $5, $10, $50 million, you need more advanced estate planning. You're talking about irrevocable trusts and all that kind of stuff. But between something like a trust and will, which is our enterprise solution for estate organization, and we're leaning toward, we haven't signed yet, but we think we're going to use Hargrove. If they can push the data into you guys and trust and will can push the data into you guys, that'd be awesome. That's something I would love to see. And also taxes.
Okay.
Like Holistic plan.
Yeah, very good.
I don't want to take up the rest of the 10 minutes talking about that.
Well, but whenever you talk about that, like we launched a new developer site in Q4. So anybody who wants to interact with eMoney, all the data points, we have over 250 ways to push data in and out just with our basic API. So if you ever have ideas about that, check that out too, because you could see that's already available. So they could easily connect the dots for getting data in and out. So that's another investment we made in the platform in the past year, just make it easier for that interconnection of all these great ideas that folks like yourself come up with.
That's great. Yeah. Kudos for doing that. Orion did the same thing, which I thought was smart.
Yeah, having a way to interconnect at a different level rather than just use the product off the shelf, I think is really what it's about there, or what it sounds like. So I want to ask you a question here, and then we're going to have to wrap. I think we could spend a lot more time than what we have today, but because you are in the tech space, you've done a lot more than just working with financial services. When an RIA is going out there to choose their tech stack or a tech provider, what is the best thing that they should have in the back of their mind as they're thinking and evaluating who they're working with?
Well, I think it's the end result that you're looking for. Like what are your primary goals of your business that you're hoping to accomplish? There's many ways to go about growing a business, maximizing a business, but understanding what your end result is. Do you want to do a lot of development in-house? Do you want a best of breed approach? Those are a lot of the things, like even today, like when you look at going and getting a CRM system, I want to work with Salesforce. Do I want Salesforce as my core? And do I want to then start bolting on all the Salesforce provided products? Or do I want a best of breed approach? So if you're going and my end result is I want to go best of breed, well, then you need a core system of record that is interconnected with all of those. Your integrations are going to be very, very important. Or do I want a smaller core and I want to build my own UI? I want to build my own portal. I have a large tech team. So I think knowing the end goal in mind is the most important thing, because then you could talk to different technology providers in the space to help guide you, for that. So that's one. And then working with some core, you're always going to need a CRM system unless you want to build one yourself.
Right.
I would highly encourage you not to do that because I think a lot of people have had challenges with doing that. But you look at that, or you look at a planning software provider, look for ones that give you that end goal. If you're looking for something super open, if you're looking for something to build upon, if you're looking for something best of breed, knowing that going in and then working with a trusted partner to help guide you through that, I think are the most important things that if you're going to start from scratch.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, like I said, is you have been absolutely fantastic, Christian. I've really enjoyed the back and forth, because we're digging into, and I think there's probably some really good nuggets for advisors out there to help stimulate their thoughts around this and hopefully encourage them to do really, really high quality work. One thing when we get to the end that we like to land with is, well, sorry, there we go. That's the reminder. We're getting there. I'd love to hear from you, Christian. How do you want to be known? You've done a lot of different stuff in the tech space. You're making a splash with eMoney here, doing some great things. What do you want to be known as when people say, here comes Christian, this guy is really...
Yeah, I didn't come from the space. I don't have any preconceived notion of history in terms of the way it was, the way it needs to be. Bring ideas. We love them. It's just nothing is off the table. We're progressive in terms of how we want to interact with people. And you have a great idea. We'd love to hear it. That's really what it comes down to, it with being a pure play, financial planning firm. We want to interact with you, and we'd like to hear where you want it to go, and we'll do our best to help support that. So anything's on the table. We love great ideas. We love to interact with new partners, existing partners in the business, to build things to make your life easier, to make your clients more happy, to help grow your business, get more assets under management, save time, spread data throughout your organization to allow you make more informed decisions. So you got ideas, please bring them. I'm always happy to chat. Hit me up on LinkedIn, see me at a show, send me an email. I'll get you to the right place.
So what I'm hearing is your guy likes to help businesses develop.
Absolutely.
That's great. Chuck.
All right.
Anything you want to add as we call it a day?
We'll save the tax integration for some other time. As a matter of fact, Christian, maybe I'll have you on my pod over at Investment News on Go RI. We can continue that chat, because I like to see what you guys have cooking on that sleeve as well.
Happy to do it, or I'll see you at T3 or some other.
I'll be at T3 for sure.
Okay, well, I'll see you at that one.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for joining us, guys. We'll make sure in the show notes have information on eMoney and how to get a hold of Christian. Of course, LinkedIn and all ways to find you. Thank you, Christian, so much. Hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thanks so much.
All right.